everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing a junk journal for a friend that has requested a steampunk theme, and she also asked me if I could video the process of making it and explain it and put it on my channel because she wants to learn how to make them as well. So the first thing I did with her, of course, was the theme, steampunk. There's a lot of different kinds of paper. So we talked about colors. We looked through some papers, and she chose what she wanted. And so I'm ready to make the junk journal. So first of all, tools. What do we need? We need scissors. We need a paper bone folder or a bone paper folder. These little nifty things, but you can use anything that has a sharp edge, then you can push down to get a nice clean crease. A pencil to mark. An X-Acto knife in case you need to cut some sharp edges. Tape, double-sided. I have the distress ink here because I am going to just distress the edges of the paper for the steampunk, but you don't have to if you don't need to do that. And this is a smaller, narrow 1/4 inch wide double-sided tape. You need glue. Fabri-Tac is what I use after being frustrated for many years using the regular water-based glue like Elmer's glue and tacky glue, and having to be so extremely careful, and it was so tedious to make sure that you had just enough to stick but not enough to make it crinkly. It was a hassle. Couple of videos that I saw, they didn't have that problem, and they said, Fabri-Tac, this is not water-based, and that's why you don't get the crinkles and the bubbles and the ripping, the paper ripping, which was what used to frustrate me. You need rulers. I use these two, depending on what for, but all you need is a ruler. You need to measure, to cut out the sizes that you need if you have to cut out your paper sizes, etc., etc. I recommend a paper cutter. I tend to use the Fiskar paper cutter, but you absolutely can cut your paper with your scissors and your board to make the book covers with a knife. And a good, now this one's plastic, which is why I always have a metal one so that I can cut with an X-Acto knife. You need the mat boards. I use, it's called magazine board, and it is a hard, not quite as thick as chipboard, but harder than cardstock. I don't have the thickness, I don't have the GSM or the poundage for this. This is, I buy it as magazine board, and they come in 8.5 by 11 in the magazine board. And they come bigger too, 9 by 12, I think. These are, believe it or not, if you know somebody who has a comic book store, tap into that because they throw these out by the packs. By the packs. So he gives them to my husband. My husband brings them home, and this is fabulous. It's great. Not too thick, not too thin, and it's very good and sturdy. So you need about 3 pieces of these, and you need paper. Different color paper, different styles. These are pretty similar, different cuts. But you can choose whatever you want. And when it comes to paper, you can use a brown paper bag, a doily, a napkin, a scrap, an old letter, an old receipt, an old invoice paper. You can use anything you want. absolutely anything you want, you can use to make a junk journal. In this case, we went with a steampunk theme, and these browns and oranges are the predominant theme. I have a lot of other contrasting, and you'll see when we look at the signatures, you'll see what I mean. The signatures are, by the way, when I first started looking at junk journals, everybody was talking about signatures. I had no idea what they were talking about. A signature is the collection of papers that you're going to put together, fold, and you're going to sew them into your journal, and you'll have 3, 4, 5, 6, however many into the spine of your journal. And these little booklets that are inside, those are called signatures. So that's what that is. But you get all the papers you want, different colors, blends, types, styles, prints, whatever you want. And you're going to need that. And we're going to talk a little bit about how much and all that when we actually are doing signatures. And then this is, for me, the best kept secret on the internet, I swear. There is a seller on Etsy called My Porch Prints. There's very little that they put out that I haven't bought, to be honest with you, because I love their digital prints for papers. I use them a lot in my junk journals. But they have this little trick. They have these hidden spine, and these are signature spines, so that you sew your signatures to this spine right here. You sew it to the spine, and then you glue the spine to the spine of your book, of your journal cover. And this is what it looks like already printed out, right? So as you can see, this is for 4, and it's a little smaller. And basically the size, they give you one size, but then you can reduce it or enlarge it on your printer, however, whatever size your junk journal is going to be. This one is going to be a little smaller, 7.5 by 5.5. And so that's what this one is. But these are the holes. On these 3 holes, there's going to be a signature. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to have 4 signatures. And they're going to be sewn into this. And then this is going to be glued to the spine. And this is going to be glued to the covers. And that's going to be nice and tight in your journal. So this is one of the best things I have found on the internet. It is fabulous. And it's on Etsy, My Porch Prints. Okay, so I have, they come in a lot of different sizes. You'll see when you get it. They come from really big to small, and then they come this size, and you have to reduce it for whatever size you're making your journal. All right, so this for me, there are some things that have to be calculated out. And in this case, what determined what we're doing was the cover for the paper that unfortunately I don't have with me right now because I ran out of ink and I have to print it, and I ran out of ink, but I didn't want to waste time and I wanted to start the video. But the size of my paper, and here I have something similar, but it's the wrong color scheme. But it was in an 8.5 by 11. But the beauty of this print was it was this way. Usually to make my covers, I go like this. I put one on top of the other. It goes one on top of the other, and then it goes around, and I can fold it on all four sides. However, because the print was this way, I couldn't do that because it would look weird standing up this way. So it had to be like this, which determined that my signature my signatures had to be able to be inside here with enough space that I can fold in to wrap around my covers. So, okay. First thing you do is get all your papers cut down to size. Or if you're going to use the regular 8.5 by 11, just organize your papers by color, pattern, so that you can just grab, put them in stacks and just grab and kind of collate. That was the word I was looking for. Okay. So I try to do print, maybe less print. I have some pages that I print and leave blank in the back, and I usually print them on coordinating paper. This is cream and ivories that I'm using, right? So I have that kind. I have print and maybe not too busy, but also print, right? I have a blank to give it a break. Otherwise, in my opinion, it just kind of drives you nuts with your eyes, all this print all over the place, especially steampunk. Steampunk is really busy print. Those are the ones that I want in that order. And I put them together, fold them nice and tight, and then you will find that the middle will stick out, which makes sense, right? Because the thickness of this here, when folded, will be what sticks out over here. It's going to push the paper out. So I just trimmed it. Now, if you don't have a paper cutter, your ruler, as you can see, I can still cut even more. Your ruler and your X-Acto knife, nice and sharp, put a new blade in it, and you cut right down, and that would help. Once I was done though, I used some distress ink. Since most of them have like a dark brown, I used a walnut stain of distress ink in my little dabber, and just went through the edges so that I didn't have bright light edges, and it all looked old and industrial. Okay, so now you have your signature together. The next thing you need, I'm going back to tools now, you need a hole, an owl, A-W-L, owl. Anyway, hole puncher works for me. Nice, looks like an ice pick, but small. You need that. And there's a lot of different sizes. There's the thicker one, and then a nice thin one. It really depends on how thick you want the hole. I've only used this one that is very thick for very, very thick, rough paper. But for the most part, I use this one. And I have a few other ones. You know, every bookbinding kit will bring one. So you end up collecting these the same way you connect the paper folders. Okay. So you do the same thing 4 times. or as many times as you are going to have signatures. And these are not all identical. You'll see repeat papers, but they're not all identical. Like I said, I ran out of ink and I would have had more variety, but she said it was fine. She just loves this color scheme. She gets what she wants. You can do this in whatever paper you want, in whatever style you want, whatever colors you want, okay? All right. So now there is something called a paper cradle that I have ordered. I found it on Etsy, of course. Can you tell I love Etsy? I found it on Etsy, and it's a narrow, I guess 3D printed, and it has a ridge inside, just like this. And see, this is what I use. This is a foam that came packing something I ordered. I don't know. But at this point, it's all in there. And it cradles, you can see it cradles the spine right there. And this is to make your holes. Where do you put your holes? That's where our wonderful spine templates come in. It brings two, right? This is where we're going to sew it in. So we're going to put that to the side. But this is where our holes are going to be. This is your template. So we're going to open to the middle right here. We're going to put this in our cradle ridge right there, and we're going to put this in the middle. Make sure it's edge to edge right there, right where it needs to be. See? I ordered a plastic one because it is going to make it a lot easier when it doesn't pop up again. Then you grab your awl, and right in that middle hole, push down. And you want either a cradle or you do want a foam. Otherwise, you're going to make a hole through whatever you're up on. Or if it's a hard surface, it won't go through. So you need enough to have it go through. There you go. That's two. And right through the middle here, in this hole, we have three. Okay. That's one done. Okay. And again. Don't know if you can see it on screen, but here we go. All your signatures are nicely aligned, all have the holes on them. Okay. Now, our spine, right? We're going to sew these onto here. However, look at the contrast. This is white paper. This is such a pretty orangey yellow. It's going to be a stark, sharp contrast. We don't want that. So, what I'm going to do is I am going to glue this on this paper. And so that's what's going to be up with the signatures here. Okay, so First thing we need to do, you have one of these guys. For me, they're scoring tools, but they are also used a lot to do like nail art. You dab the dotting tools, but I call it a scorer tool. Let's bring back our foam. We're going to punch the holes so that we know where we're. So there's our holes. So now we know where we're going. Our signatures have the holes. I don't know, can you see that? Because that's important to see. And how the holes align. That's why our templates are so important. Okay, now let's get rid of this. Let's talk thread. Well, I use the regular waxed thread for bookbinding. Comes in a lot of different colors. I prefer white. I do have a yellow one that I think is what I'm going to use for this because it does coordinate better, but for the 90% of the time, white works just fine. You need a bookbinding needle, which is a bigger hole here, obviously. You can, and I have used, and I do enjoy using a plastic canvas needle that has a very big eye, but it's kind of dull at the tip. You can see that. But it's got a nice big eye opening. So this is the color I'm going to use. As you can see, it'll be a lot nicer blend than the white. That'll give it a really stark contrast. Okay. Rule of thumb. You measure 3. 1, 2, and 3. That should give you enough with maybe a little bit left over. And you will have some left over if the waist bothers you. You may want to do maybe 2.5 or 2. But I'm always afraid that I'm going to go through all that and end up not having enough and having to start all over again. All right, so here we go. We're going to grab our signature. Make a decision where you want the first one, the second one, the third one. Kind of like this one for the first one with the pretty woman's face on there. So am I going to do it like this? Am I going to do it like this? That's going to determine what's first and last. I want to do it like this. So this is going to be my first one. All right? Okay. So I'm going to go through my middle from back to front. There. And I'm going to leave a nice little tail there. Then I'm going to go through the bottom. Excuse my hands, they're very stiff. And we go through the bottom one. And pull it through. Remember to leave that little tail because that's how we're going to tie. All right. And then we're going to go all the way up here. This is usually the one that I end up having it doesn't always want to go through straight. End up having to do them a little bit at a time. There we go. Pull it tight. And then through the middle again. To the back. Okay. And now you have two nice tails. And you're going to pull these tight. There we go. So that this is tight. See, now that's loose. We need it tight. Not enough to rip the paper. It's kind of a tension. You want it tense. Hear that? You want it like that. And then you make a knot. Make a double knot. Because my fear is always it's going to unravel, because that's, you know, Murphy and I are old friends. So I make 3 knots. You make as many as you want, obviously, but I would make at least 2. And this is nice and stiff. Then I'm going to cut this off, but I'm not going to cut it down here because, again, I'm terrified of unraveling. I give it a little bit so it's not loose. And there is our first signature sewn in. Okay, we're ready for the cover now. So we have our magazine board, or if you want to use chipboard, there are book, what is it called? Book cover sheets. And they're pretty sturdy. They're even a little thicker than this. It all depends on what you want. But you can find a lot of those different types of materials on Amazon. I use magazine board. It's a lot more affordable and easier to cut, etc., and they work really well. Okay, so you have your boards, and you're going to mark your size, which is 7 1/4. Right? And how wide? Ours is 5 3/4. And we mark it. And we draw our line, and you're going to do this much better than me with a ruler, and you're going to cut. You will cut it out, right? You draw your lines. Now that you've measured, you cut it out. You're going to make 2 of these, and that'll be the front and the back. For the spine, you're going to do something similar as far as height. You're going to make your spine 7 1/4, or the same as the height of your covers. However, for the width, you're going to use your sample here, or either your guide or your spine, right? And you make sure that your spine is the same width as the spine on your signatures. Length, it'll be the same height as your cover, which in this case is 7 1/4. Okay? And you cut your pieces out. So you should have your two covers and a spine. Okay? Now, I told you earlier I couldn't show you the papers I chose for covers because I ran out of ink, which I did. Fortunately, the ink came early and I was very excited about that, and I'm ready to finish this now. I printed out I need to decide where do I want to overlap this and where is my spine going to be. So I have a very small spine, so it's not like I'm going to actually have an entire one of these sections as a spine because I have a very small spine because it's a smaller size. I could do that, but then the spine would be maybe here. I'm not sure. And I do it face up so that I can actually see where my spine is going to be. If I do this, that's where my spine would be, right? And I would have that for a spine, which I like. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my ever trustworthy tape, double-sided tape. You can do glue. Absolutely, you can do glue. I'm just going to do my double-sided tape here. If you don't want to use this much double-sided tape, which I understand because it's expensive, just do glue. But make sure that you have that edge, because if that edge comes off, you end up having a mess. Okay. Line it up nice and tight so that it looks like it's one paper. See? It looks seamless, like it's one paper, continuity of the graphic. This makes it easy. Graphics like these make it easy because it has those lines, and so it just almost looks like another, it's just going straight down all these bars. Now we can see if we're going to have it there, and we're going to have you there. Cover, and we are ready to set this up. The first thing, obviously, we're going to do, and because I want my my spine here, I am going to mark that I want it, and then make sure you know your orientation, right? And I know I want my spine in here. So I'm going to set my spine down pretty much where I want it. Make sure I have the same amount of space up and down, right? Almost 3/4 of an inch there. I need to go up a little. Okay. All right. So this is where I want my spine to be. Right in the middle of that. And because I'm being particular about what I want on the spine when I wrap, I'm going to mark where I'm putting my spine. And I'm just going to make my little corners here, which, you know, you should do anyway when you're doing this. Now there's this nifty little tool. I got this from this great vendor in Spain. Lovely, lovely lady. And she made them for me in my favorite color. And they're bookbinding tools. I've since discovered on Etsy you can find them as well. And these are for cutting corners and measuring your in-betweens, etc., etc. It's almost like a 1/4 of an inch here. Seems to be the amount of space for the most part that's used. You can use more or less. It's entirely up to you, but it's usually about 1/4 of an inch. And here we go. I moved mine. And this I'll show. She put my name on it, which I thought was really sweet. And this is to mark the corners, which is not indispensable. It's just, it makes it very useful. I'll show you that in a minute. But here we go. Now, I put my little tool here, or you can just measure 1/4 of an inch and mark it. That's where you're going to put your other guide. But this makes it so much easier, because then you just put this right up on it. Right up on it. And, you know, kind of straighten it up so you're not all crooked like I am. I'm telling you, even with rulers, I'm a mess. And then I mark right on the corner where the edge is supposed to be. Right? And I hold it down nice and tight, and then I mark over here. Okay. Now we hold this down and we do the same thing on the other side. So when you remove these, you should have all your marks of where your pieces are going to go. And I know I have more on this side than on this side, but that's because of where I want my my spine to be. And that, you know, kind of creates a mismatch, but in the long run, it'll look really nice. Okay? So, what do we do now? We glue. Here's our cover. We're just going to fold it over. That's really nice how this came out. And I'm just going to go fold it down like this. Make it all the way to the back. And I'm going to do the same thing over here, pushing it all the way to the back. All right, now this is a great tool for corner. This too, I've seen it on Etsy nowadays. For the longest time, the only person I could find that had it and sold it was in Spain. But you can find this on Etsy now. So here we go. You put this little triangle, put it on the corner, right there. Okay. In reality, all you need is a ruler. Give it maybe 1/8 of an inch and do catty corner, and that's what you're going to cut off. It's just that this makes it so much easier. Okay. This I should cut it down a little more, but it's all right. It's going to be covered anyway. Okay. You can use your X-Acto knife. You can use a scissor. Doesn't matter. You're going to cut, basically, you're going to cut these corners off. Now you are ready to bring these in. Okay, now I give myself a little cheating here so that it all comes down. And I draw the line straight through so that I can just fold it all without a problem. Don't score too deep. You don't want to rip your paper because this has to... You're covering the cardboard. You don't want it ripped. And now you have a good idea of what it's going to look like, how it's going to fold over, how your corners are going to look. I like how that's looking. Okay. And while we have it folded, we're going to score here so it does a nice turn. And you don't have it pulling or lifting. What you're going to do is you're going to score in between on both sides here, because that is how your book is going to open and close. You don't want the paper tight and then it doesn't want to open completely or lay flat. So you want to make sure that you've made the space for that. And here is our cover, all done. And it's nice and movable on both sides, which means it'll open and close nicely. And there's our cover, all ready to go. All right. Now we are ready to put our signatures in. Now make sure it's oriented the right way. All right, because you don't want to end up putting it like this and then it's upside down. So here we go. And this will go right in here. So we're going to I put a lot of glue on my little knots. I'm just doing the spine. Okay. And just make sure that you're centralizing it. You can, of course, make your marks. You can absolutely make your marks. That's an entirely smart way to do it. And I make sure that I'm right in the middle on both sides. On side to side. Oops, I just moved mine. Side to side on the spine and up and down so that I have the same amount from the top and from the bottom. Okay, so we have a change of a plan here. With all the leftover papers that I had, I made another identical set. I usually make 2 of each. I have glue all over my stuff. I'm sorry. I made this one in a hurry because the original intended recipient of the Steampunk Journal was going on a trip and wanted her journal to take it along. She did not want she didn't want the bookmark. She didn't want any of the decorations that I was thinking about for in here, for on top and around on the outside. She just wanted the strap and these little brass nameplate, which I did, and I'll see if I can insert a picture while I'm talking. I don't know how to insert picture in a video, so I'm going to try to figure that out. But the final basically was just the wrap, the elastic wrap, and and the corner. She wanted the corner covers as well. And that was about it. Okay, so I did not find any metal ribbon that I liked. So I took the silver one. This is the original silver one. And I painted it with this metal paint. Now, this is old. I don't know if they still sell this one. It's Deco Art metal paint. It says it's a one-step process. This is like a gold one, and I just kind of dry brushed it on so it wouldn't be too bright and had still that industrial look. And it doesn't look so bad now next to the brass, as you can see. So I think that'll go nice on my covers. Okay. All right, so I've got my outside done. I'm not going to do a bookmark because, like I said, I like them to be tucked in here. I don't like to makeshift. So first, we're going to do the insides because I want the corner to cover anything from the inside. So I want to do that first. And since we are not putting any ribbons or anything, we can seal this down. So we get our paper. And I like to measure it on here because when I do it measuring with rulers and stuff, for some reason it never comes out right. Now I usually cover, I cover into here. You can see that fold, this fold out here. And I know this one is a fold as well for when it gets fat. But what I do is I score both of them so that it has its space in there. And I do need to score. Because otherwise you get this stiff that stays like this, and you don't want your covers to stay that way. Or it'll rip inside, which is problematic as well. So let me measure this. And I want to cut it here because that is my first fold, right? Want it up to there. I leave a tiny little, maybe 1/8 of an inch there, right? And I'll mark it about 1/8 of an inch from the edge here, right? And, oopsie, put this in the right place or I'm going to be short. My hands are so dry that it's just scraping over everything and moving it. And then we're going to do about 1/8 of an inch here. All right, so here is my marks. Okay, I've already done the back. Here's the back. Now we're going to do the front, the inside cover, and I've already glued down this part, and now we're going to glue down this part. Okay, the inside is now done. There's your inside cover, backside cover, right. So now we are going to, okay, I've done some work here. I did a dry test run of the metal ribbon with the elastic on the back, and I ended up with a very wobbly, not flat journal. So I have glued it on the front, and after I glued it, I remembered I didn't turn the camera on. So I'm going to show you how I did this. How I glued this down by doing the one in the back. So the first thing I did was I found the middle point and I put the crimped metal in the middle. I used tacky glue, and this is jewelry glue that glues metal. This is E7000, and the mix of two will keep it down very nicely. Okay. Now I had marked on top where it would match the front. So I marked it so that I could put it on around the same place as the front. And there it is. Back to the front. So now we have this bump here, and we really want to cover this up. So I have these fasteners. They're brass fasteners. Use them a lot for a lot of things. That we can put in here. Or I can put it maybe a little bit more this way. You can put there. And then with this in it, we really don't see where this is coming from. And of course we have our corners that I have to put on the back page. So let's do our corners first. It's going to be metal on metal and metal on paper. Not too thrilled with it, but that's pretty much how it came out. I think I want to do another. If I can get this out. Yep, I did. I think I like it better without it. And I think I'm going to put this here on the side, because for some reason that's where it inspires me to go. So we'll figure something else out for the closing, or we'll leave it without a tie of some sort. Now for me, this is done, but you can keep putting decorations on it. You can put on the edges, you can put danglies here. One of the things that Steampunk is known for is those thick jewelry, really fancy and black, kind of gothic looking. You can glue some of that there. If you find a pin, you can take the back off and put it there. You can make it as glam or as plain as you want it. because that's the beauty of junk journals, that you can pretty much make it whatever you want it to be. And decorate it to your heart's content. There you go. I like this better than putting up a lot of beads and stuff. I don't know, this just feels to me like it should be nice and plain. If it were maybe a shabby chic, I'd probably put maybe some lace and ruffles and some beads. But this, I don't know, this inspires me to leave it just the way it is. So that is it. There's the Steampunk Journal. The same principles apply to any kind of journal you make. You just change the graphics, change the paper and color scheme, and you can make it whatever you want, because that's the beauty of junk journaling. So that's it for me. Thank you very much, and consider subscribing and joining the family, and I will see you next time. Bye.